Good morning, everyone. We're live from the Taiji Whale Museum to check on the captive dolphins here. After all the typhoons and the bad weather we've been having, we just wanted to check on the well-being of the dolphins that are here at the Taiji Whale Museum. I'm currently at the tank where Angel is kept. And there's actually 4 new dolphins in with Angel and the other dolphins that are in here. And they're 4 rough-toothed dolphins. They all seem extremely stressed out, swimming tightly together in a circle. Just a moment ago, one of them was really splashing. And Angel is in here as well. She's just coming to the surface over there. There's also 2 striped and a spotted dolphin in this tank. So about 19 days ago was the last red cove where 4 rough-toothed dolphins were captured. They were driven into the cove along with the rest of their pod and a pilot whale. And we haven't actually been able to locate the 4 rough-toothed dolphins until possibly now. They all appear to have some sort of gunk in their eyes. We'll try and get some closer up pictures to try and determine what this is. But they're swimming very closely together as if they feel safe together. And have been splashing and breaching. This tank is far too small for dolphins who swim up to 100 kilometers a day in the wild. And these dolphins, if they are the ones from the capture just recently, this is completely alien environment for them. So every single dolphin you see here in the Taiji Whale Museum has been captured off the coast of Japan. They've been driven into the cove, netted off, manhandled and inspected, and then ripped away from their families to be put on display for human entertainment. So just in this one small tank, there are 7 dolphins. And I'm not sure if you can see through the water, but there's also a tunnel running through this tank. so it's not the full depth the whole way round. These dolphins will just swim in circles endlessly until feeding time. So the rest of the museum, there are several other tanks and pens. This is the lagoon. The open ocean is just over that wall. And the cove is actually just round the corner. So especially when there's a drive going on, the dolphins that have already been captured must hear everything. It looks like they're just starting a show towards the other end of the lagoon. It's the whale show where they have a false killer whale and a couple of rhesus dolphins. So I'll go downstairs. There's a possibility that we might lose connection, but we'll try and keep it going, and so you can get a closer look of these rough-toothed dolphins that are in with Angel, and also a closer look of Angel and the other striped and spotted dolphins that are in here. So just bear with me as I go downstairs. So this is the tunnel underneath from where I was just standing. So you can see the two striped dolphins. There's Angel and a spotted dolphin. Angel was captured in January 2014, and she's been at the Taiji Whale Museum ever since. So that's nearly 6 years. It'll be 6 years in January since she was captured and taken away from her family in the wild. This is one of the rough-toothed dolphins. And I'm not sure if you can hear, but they're really vocalizing quite loudly, trying to communicate with each other. It's very unlikely in the wild that this many species would be in such close proximity. So If you're just joining us, this is Dolphin Project. We're live at Taiji Whale Museum, where they hold a lot of dolphins captive. Here in this tank we have 2 striped dolphins, Angel, who's an albino bottlenose, and a spotted dolphin, pantropical spotted, and 4 toothed dolphins. So during the typhoon last year, the roof was actually ripped off of this building. So that's why you can see the sky above. And this means that the dolphins are really exposed to sunlight, especially seeing Arlo. If they were out in the wild still, they'd be able to swim deep and escape the harsh sun. So we'll just take a walk out to the lagoon and check on some of the captives who are out there. As I said, there's a show just at the end of the lagoon there. It's the whale show with a false killer whale and 2 rhesus dolphins. So seeing as we had Typhoon Hagibis and several other tropical storms and typhoons that affected the sea levels and the conditions here, we just thought we'd come and check on the dolphins. I'll see if we can have a quick look at the show. So if you've been following our social media, you would have seen that yesterday was the annual whale festival here in Taiji. So a lot of these people probably came to town to visit the whale festival. So just moments ago, before this show started and before we started this live stream, we saw all 3 of these dolphins just logging motionless at the surface. This is the only stimulation they have throughout their days. So they often make the dolphins swim on, exit the water onto these slide outs. And dolphins, obviously, because they're used to being in the water, they aren't used to the gravity on their bodies, and it could cause some damage to their internal organs. It's incredibly sad to see these animals reduced to puppets for human entertainment. So while the show's going on, the other dolphins in these lagoons, I just heard some splashing. But you can see them logging motionless. So on this part of the lagoon, you can buy a bucket of fish at this store and feed the dolphins. So we'll go and have a look and see what dolphins they're holding in these pens. So here we've got some bottlenose dolphins. There's 4 of them in here at the moment. They're always very hungry, begging for food. You can see the rake marks on their backs from being in such a small space with other animals. You see this bottlenose here just floating in the middle. We've got some more bottlenose here. And it also looks like there's a melon-headed. Here we go, here's a melon-headed whale. They're used to customers coming and feeding them, so they're just begging for food. I'm sorry, my angels, I can't give you any food. I'm sorry. They jump and try and perform tricks in order to be rewarded with food, because this is what they've learned from being in captivity. There's several other pens over here, but unfortunately we don't have access to see what else is in there. It's just a big jump behind me from a rhesus dolphin. And you see as the trainers walk along with their cooler boxes of fish, the dolphins get a lot more active. In this pen we have some rhesus dolphins. This is Hamata, he's not an albino, he's a leucistic rhesus dolphin who was captured in November 2014 with his brother, who was a piebald, also a leucistic dolphin. But he's kept in the Moira Bay pens. This is very stereotypic behaviour for dolphins in captivity, just logging motionless at the surface of the water. These dolphins were used to swimming up to 100 kilometers a day, and this is their life now, just in this tiny space. The music from the show must also be quite stressful for them. It's very loud. These are huge animals. Just confined. Here's another rhesus dolphin who's just swimming out in the lagoon. So rhesus, you see the white scarring on their backs. This is actually from their main food source, which is squid. And also from activity with other dolphins. But again, just stereotypic behaviour from boredom and no stimulation. There's another one just to the right there. So as I mentioned, every single one of these dolphins was driven into the cove at some point. These were all wild animals. That's a pilot whale. Dolphins in the wild would never lie motionless like this. Even when they're sleeping, they sleep with half their brain active at a time, so they're constantly on the move. You can see Hamata, the albino, the leucistic rhesus, just staring outside of the nets, hopefully you can see the reflection of the sun isn't affecting it too much. Just staring into the pen next door. So there are now customers walking towards us with buckets of fish. So we'll start to see these dolphins get a lot more active as they fight for food and to be fed. You can see there tends to be a lot of aggression within these pens and tanks. Even if these animals are the same species, it doesn't necessarily mean that they've come from the same pod. They're placed into artificial pods. It's the trainers who decide who they live with, not the dolphin's choice, like it is in the wild. These are beautiful wild animals that have been reduced to a life in captivity. You'll see all three of them spy hop with their mouths open, waiting to be fed. These dolphins are completely reliant on humans now for all their meal times. In the wild, they're able to forage and hunt for their own food. So we'll just make our way around to the front tanks. So I'm not sure if you heard that, but you can hear these dolphins absolutely begging for food. So another experience they offer at the Taiji Museum is a kayaking experience where they get to kayak around the lagoon with the false killer whale and the two rhesus dolphins. That's the false killer whale. False killer whales haven't actually been driven into the cove since 2015. If you're unfamiliar with what happens here in Taiji, dolphin hunters leave at sunrise every morning from the 1st of September until the beginning of March in search of dolphins. And if they find a pod, they drive them into the cove, net it off, and select the prettiest dolphins that they would like for a life in captivity. These dolphins can sell for up to 6 figures once they're trained. And they also slaughter dolphins for meat. The meat is sold in supermarkets around Taiji and in restaurants, but it isn't very popular anymore due to the high levels of mercury. But every single one of these dolphins here in Taiji Whale Museum was driven into the cove and torn away from their families. So you can see them just preparing the kayak for this family. They'll then get to paddle around the lagoon with the dolphins and feed them fish. So there is also a museum section, which is why it's called the Taiji Whale Museum, in that building over there, where they have lots of different artifacts and harpoons and spears that they used to use for traditional whaling. And you can actually see some of the harpoons that they used to use in this little shed. Japan has been whaling for thousands of years using traditional methods, but now these dolphin hunts are completely different. They're motivated by the captivity industry, seeing as captive dolphins can be so profitable, and they use motorboats to drive them into the cove, and very inhumane practices. The dolphin hunts only started in the 1960s, which is when the captivity industry really boomed. And so this is why it's still happening today. As I mentioned, there's not really a market for dolphin meat anymore, but there is a demand for captive dolphins. So please do not visit a facility that holds any dolphins captive, and encourage all your family and friends to do the same. Please share this live stream. This is actually our first live stream on YouTube and Twitch. So please do share. And if you visit dolphinproject.com, you can find out more ways that you can take action and support our campaign in Taiji. They have here a skeleton. I believe it's a blue whale skeleton. So just making our way around to the front show tanks. Where they have about 7 dolphins, I think. 7 or 8. These dolphins haven't moved since we arrived this morning, about 45 minutes ago. Just stayed staring at the wall in one spot. These are pantropical spotted dolphins, who are usually in the wild extremely active. It's incredibly sad to see them this way. In the main show tank we have 3 pantropical spotted dolphins, who are also extremely active in the wild. They seem quite frustrated right now, very frantic and splashing around. Almost seems as if one of them's chasing the other. This tank is extremely small for such agile creatures. Again, just begging for food. The only stimulation for these dolphins is the 4 or 5 shows that they perform a day. Otherwise, they're just swimming around aimlessly, agitated. You've got to remember that at the end of the day, when you visit a captive facility like this, you get to go home. These dolphins do not. They are stuck here, doing the same routine day after day. Seems to be a lot of activity between these 3 Pacific white-sided. So there's definitely some aggression between these dolphins. When dolphins are in captivity, they have nowhere to escape to. And their only option is to take out their aggression on each other. And in this small pen to the left, there are striped dolphins and a melon-headed whale. It's heartbreaking to see these animals just swimming round in circles when they swim up to 100 kilometers a day in the wild. So there are 2 striped dolphins here and a melon-headed whale. These dolphins really appear to be fighting. As I mentioned earlier, even if there are dolphins of the same species in the same tank, it doesn't necessarily mean that they all came from the same pod. And so when they're forced into confinement like this, there tends to be aggression between them. When we first arrived here this morning, they had invited customers up on the stage to take pictures and to touch the dolphins. And they had 2 of the Pacific white-sided on the slide out on their bellies. And the 3rd Pacific white-sided, they were trying to keep occupied as much as possible. And it's because there is aggression between these dolphins. We've witnessed before one of the Pacific white-sided, when the other 2 were up on the side, trying to bite at its tail. You can see them chasing each other. They're extremely active, extremely agile creatures, and this tank is just far too small for them. all of these dolphins have already experienced so much trauma from being driven into the cove in the first place, but they continue to suffer every single day in a life that and in a tank that is so unnatural to their natural habitat. So dolphin projects are on the ground in Taiji for 6 months of the year, and we continue to check in on the captive dolphins here at the Taiji Whale Museum. Since we'd had such bad weather recently with the typhoon and several other tropical storms, we decided to check in on the captives here today, and there have been some changes made, and we've seen a lot of aggression between dolphins, but we'll continue to update you on any information that we get on the captive dolphins here. But I'm going to end this live stream now. But thank you so much for joining us, and please continue to share our social media posts and educate others on the realities of the captivity industry.